You know, back in the day, in order to render this screensaver correctly without dropping any frames or without skipping, you'd need a machine with a fairly high-end graphics card and preferably a decent CPU in it. Well, in today's 2024 specifications, it's far from high performance. However, it gets the job done for what I need it for, which is primarily a media center computer. So the video is delivered via a DisplayPort, and that DisplayPort adapter that you can see right there as I zoom into it in the center of your screen converts that DisplayPort to HDMI female port, which the HDMI male connector plugs into, and which then you are able to see the picture on your TV or monitor of choice. So the specifications of the machine aren't fantastic, however it's far efficient enough to run Windows 7, 8 or 10 just fine. I don't think it's possible to run Windows XP due to the NVMe hard drive in it, but basically the code name of the series is Kabini, and it's the socket FT3 or FT8, which is the BGA 6 or 769, my bad, which stands for ball grid alignment. So that means that the CPU is essentially soldered to the board and non-changeable. The main board, we don't have many specs about that, otherwise the last thing we can really see is that it was made in late 2014, so it would have come into use in 2015 or sometime for a couple of years. We've got the RAM, 8GB. It can be maxed out to 16 gigs, but we have two 4GB sticks of DDR3 laptop RAM in it, running at the same speed of 800MHz. Graphics card is the AMD Radeon HD 8280E. My bad, before I described it as an 8400, but regardless. But as you can see, it's not the best performing or highest performance video card, with the core being at well, actually I don't know what would get it up and running in terms of creating any sort of demand on the CPU, but I think it's 400MHz or 600MHz clock for the video card, something like that. Now, as this PC is connected to the stereo right there, I mean, even high-end machines of its time, back in 2006 and 2007, some of them still had or found it a little tricky to render this screensaver without dropping frames or just providing like 3 frames per second. So basically my first laptop that contained Windows Vista or Windows XP wasn't installed, but it had the Windows Vista capable sticker on it. So it was basically sold on that cusp of the cessation of selling machines running Windows XP, and instead selling the machines that were running Windows Vista for an additional cost, which people quickly sort of went, well, this OS is a bit of a flop. I want this laptop to have XP on them. So yeah, that's a bit of a demonstration of that very nice HP T520 thin client that I picked up on eBay for around $45 posted. So it really is a decent little media center machine. As you can see, it is connected to the Kenwood amp, of which there's a speaker in either corner, which can be seen off in the distance there, with a subwoofer. Now that subwoofer is not a stock unit. That one is actually from a Sony system, and the amplifier simply just provides a mono line out RCA that's also controlled by the volume of the amplifier to adjust the volume of the subwoofer appropriately and accurately. So having a little looky at the subwoofer made by Sony Electronics, I have removed the front grille in order to see the subwoofer because, you know, the bass penetrates, or the bass gets out a lot better without that shield in place. Oh, by the way, I'm using sarcasm there if you didn't know. So it's a fairly decent sub, 100 watts output, and this thing really punches. However, its resonant frequencies are a little too high for my liking. It is quite boomy if you don't EQ about 100 to 150 hertz. If you don't attenuate that part of the spectrum, this subwoofer will have a bit of a boomy characteristic to it. But it is an active subwoofer, as you can see. It is powered and the light is on. As you can see, we've got the power light on it. And these speakers here made by Yamaha, they are, well, they're dual, what would they be? Dual 6.5-inch speakers, one-way speakers, and the bass port at the bottom. We have a funny, I don't know what type of tweeter that is, but it produces sound very nicely in terms of it being an incredibly crisp, clear output from the treble. Doesn't say much on it. But these speakers are rated for 120 watts nominal power and 160 watts peak power. Fairly neat setup, as you can see. Oh, by the way, this television was free. It's a 42-inch Samsung plasma television from early 2008. And man, hasn't the picture quality of television changed since then. At least it still does 1080p. Being what you Americans call a dumpster dive find, it did not include a stand, but basically that little doohickey there, that thing that you can see sticking out of the base of the TV, basically, oh, that's the back of the everything there, which is good. There's not much of a rat's nest at all. There we go. So that's basically the outputs of the amp. We then go to the speakers. This TV is packed with different video inputs. Look, it's even got S-video input, but it gives a headphone line out, which goes into the amplifier. Because I would prefer to have the audio delivered via HDMI, well, essentially a DisplayPort, which is the same thing, just a different proprietary connector. And this machine, I believe, has 2 DisplayPorts. The rear speakers on either side of the lounge provide decent Dolby Pro Logic 2 performance, or you can have it on 5-channel mode, although I don't have the center speaker connected, so it's just on Pro Logic music mode. But looking at the rear of the speaker, doesn't say a whole lot about it. It just says it's rated for 40 whiskies, 40 watts, CRS 300. So you got the wall hook. Things are just a little bare at the moment, but we are adding to it. But the main thing is the entertainment setup, which does its job very nicely, as you can see. Now the display has turned itself off, which it's set to do after about sitting idle for 20 minutes. Here's the remote for the TV, which also controls the volume of the stereo, as it's basically just outputting its audio through its line out port to the amp. Makes it easier than getting up and adjusting the volume on the amp, as the remote control that was included with the amp does not work. and the sound system was free as well. We have a HP branded keyboard and mouse. Ergotile, I prefer wireless, but yeah, beggars can't be choosers. Lastly, I'd like you to see the EQ system of which I use to just shape the audio a bit before it goes into the amplifier. Otherwise it's a bit flat and the subwoofer sort of just makes it sound a bit boomy. So zooming in, this software is called Equalizer APO version 1-4-1 configuration editor. So as you can see, we've got several EQs in place for, well, basically they're different sound preset modes depending on what music I'm listening to. So if we zoom out, we can see the actual graph a lot better, a lot easier. The line in the middle is basically 0 dB, and if we zoom into this one as well, you can see it's got a bit of EQ to that as well. So basically we can change the sound modes at just the press of a button. Very handy. And yeah, I think that's about it to display about this setup. And it is running Windows 8.1, but a stripped down version. You may recognize that start menu. Yes, it's the Windows 7 start menu in Windows 8.1. So if we type in left-handed, that is, Windows version, there we go, we have, oh, you can barely read that. It says the Windows 8.1 Pro operating system and its user interface are protected and blah blah blah. So basically, yes, it confirms it's Windows 8.1, and it was activated with the key that's built in to my HP Pro 1 desktop machine, which came with Windows 8.1. So the product key is legitimate, and it seems that it can be used multiple times, considering that the machines that have the product key embedded on the motherboard or the UEFI, it's there forever. So of course it can be reused and reused if the person needs to do a Windows reinstall. But enough of my rambling, and I think that concludes this video for now. Thanks for watching, folks. And we can't forget little Burby. He really keeps an eye on this place. 24/7 has a bird's eye view.